Well-being. Being well. Grief. Grief is a complex and deeply personal response to loss that varies widely in intensity, duration, and expression. While often associated with the death of a loved one, grief may also arise from other significant losses, including changes in identity, relationships, health, or life circumstances. There is no single or correct way to grieve. Rather, grief reflects an adaptive process through which individuals gradually adjust to the absence of what has been lost. One commonly referenced framework for understanding grief is the model introduced by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, which describes patterns often experienced during bereavement. These patterns, frequently referred to as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, are not sequential stages and should not be interpreted as a prescribed progression. Individuals may experience these responses in varying orders, revisit them repeatedly, or experience several simultaneously. Denial may initially serve as a psychological buffer against overwhelming reality, while anger can reflect frustration, helplessness, or perceived injustice. Bargaining often involves attempts to regain control or make sense of the loss, followed by periods of profound sadness or withdrawal as the reality of the loss is more fully integrated. Acceptance does not imply resolution or emotional closure, but rather a recognition of the loss and a gradual adjustment to living alongside it. Grief frequently manifests not only emotionally, but also physically and cognitively. Common physical responses include fatigue, sleep disturbances, changes in appetite, and somatic discomfort, reflecting the body's response to sustained emotional stress. Cognitive effects such as difficulty concentrating, impaired memory, or decision-making challenges are also common and represent a normal aspect of the grieving process. Emotionally, individuals may experience a wide range of responses, including sadness, guilt, anxiety, numbness, or even relief, all of which are valid components of grief. Grief can also influence social behavior and interpersonal engagement. Some individuals may withdraw from social activities and relationships, while others may seek increased connection and support. Changes in routine, motivation, and social participation often reflect the effort required to process loss rather than a lack of resilience or capacity. Rituals and shared practices play an important role in grief adjustment. Memorial services, cultural rituals, and opportunities to share memories provide structure, validation, and communal support. These practices can help individuals acknowledge loss, express emotion, and feel less isolated in their experience. Grief does not follow a fixed timeline, and it is common for waves of grief to resurface long after the initial loss, particularly around anniversaries, holidays, or meaningful reminders. This recurrence does not indicate regression, but rather reflects the enduring emotional significance of the loss within a person's life narrative. Coping with grief often involves a combination of internal and external supports. Connecting with trusted friends, family members, or support groups can provide understanding and companionship. Professional support from therapists or counselors trained in grief work may be particularly helpful when grief feels overwhelming or interferes with daily functioning. Attending to self-care, maintaining basic routines, and allowing space for emotional expression through conversation, writing, or creative outlets can further support adjustment. While the intensity of grief often changes over time, the meaning of the loss may remain. By allowing grief to unfold at its own pace and seeking support when needed, individuals can integrate loss into their lives in ways that honor what was lost while continuing to engage with life. Grief reflects not weakness, but the depth of connection and the human capacity to love. Well-being. Being well. Fear and emotional regulation. Fear is a fundamental emotional response that arises when an individual perceives a threat, whether real or anticipated. It serves an adaptive function by preparing the body and mind to respond to potential danger. Fear activates both physiological and psychological systems that work together to promote survival, but when fear responses become excessive, persistent, or disproportionate, they can interfere with emotional well-being and daily functioning. Physiologically, fear triggers activation of the sympathetic nervous system, initiating the body's fight-or-flight response. This activation results in increased heart rate and blood pressure to enhance blood flow to muscles, rapid breathing to increase oxygen intake, pupil dilation to improve visual awareness, and sweating to regulate temperature and improve grip. At the same time, non-essential processes such as digestion are temporarily suppressed to conserve energy. Stress hormones, including adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, are released to mobilize energy, heighten alertness, and sustain readiness. Muscle tension increases to prepare for rapid movement, and pain perception may be reduced to allow focus on immediate threat. Psychologically, fear involves heightened perception and attentional narrowing. Attention becomes selectively focused on perceived danger cues, often at the expense of broader contextual awareness. Emotionally, fear may be experienced as anxiety, dread, or panic, with intensity varying based on the individual's appraisal of threat severity and controllability. Cognitive appraisal plays a central role in fear, as individuals assess risk, anticipate outcomes, and evaluate available responses. These appraisals influence behavioral responses such as avoidance, freezing, or confrontation. Physiological and psychological components of fear interact dynamically, creating feedback loops that can amplify the fear response. Physical arousal may intensify emotional experience, while cognitive interpretations of danger can further elevate physiological activation. Understanding this interaction is essential for effective fear regulation, as interventions may target bodily arousal, cognitive appraisal, or both. Managing and reducing fear involves a combination of psychological, behavioral, and physiological strategies. Gradual exposure to feared stimuli in controlled and safe contexts can reduce fear responses over time by promoting habituation and increasing tolerance. Relaxation techniques, including deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation, help counteract sympathetic activation and restore autonomic balance. Cognitive behavioral approaches support identification and restructuring of distorted or exaggerated threat appraisals, replacing them with more realistic and balanced interpretations. Mindfulness-based practices further assist in fear regulation by anchoring attention in the present moment and reducing anticipatory anxiety. Visualization techniques, such as imagining successful coping or safe outcomes, can build confidence and reduce fear intensity. For socially oriented fears, skill development and gradual engagement in feared situations support increased competence and emotional safety. General strategies that support fear management include building resilience through stress management skills, maintaining supportive social connections, and engaging in healthy lifestyle practices such as regular physical activity, adequate sleep, and balanced nutrition. Positive self-talk and affirmations grounded in realism can reinforce confidence and perceived coping ability. When fear becomes overwhelming or significantly disrupts daily functioning, professional support from a mental health provider may be necessary to develop tailored interventions. Fear is a normal and protective emotional response, but its impact depends on how it is understood and managed. By recognizing the physiological and psychological mechanisms underlying fear and applying appropriate coping strategies, individuals can reduce excessive fear responses and develop greater emotional regulation, resilience, and psychological well-being. Overcoming fear and developing emotional regulation. Overcoming fear is a highly individualized and gradual process that involves understanding, regulating, and responding adaptively to perceived threats. Fear is a natural biological and psychological response designed to protect the individual. However, when fear becomes excessive, persistent, or disproportionate, it can interfere with daily functioning and emotional well-being. Effective fear management integrates cognitive, behavioral, physiological, and emotional strategies that reduce fear intensity while strengthening resilience and self-efficacy. A foundational step in managing fear is developing awareness and acknowledgement. Identifying specific triggers and patterns associated with fear responses allows individuals to understand how and when fear arises. Journaling or reflective practices can help clarify the situations, thoughts, and bodily sensations linked to fear. Acknowledging fear as a normal response rather than resisting or suppressing it can reduce secondary anxiety and support calmer engagement with the experience. Education also plays an important role in fear reduction. Learning about the nature of fear as a biological fight-or-flight response helps demystify its symptoms and reduces catastrophic interpretation. Understanding that fear reflects nervous system activation rather than actual danger can increase tolerance of fear sensations and promote cognitive reappraisal. Cognitive behavioral strategies are widely used to address fear by targeting maladaptive thought patterns. Cognitive restructuring involves identifying irrational or exaggerated beliefs and replacing them with more balanced, evidence-based interpretations. Gradual exposure to feared situations, conducted in a controlled and intentional manner, allows individuals to desensitize fear responses over time and build confidence through repeated safe experiences. Mindfulness and relaxation techniques further support fear regulation by reducing physiological arousal. Practices such as deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and mindfulness meditation activate parasympathetic nervous system responses, promoting calm and emotional containment. These techniques help individuals remain present rather than becoming overwhelmed by anticipatory fear or intrusive thoughts. Visualization strategies can also be effective. Imagining successful engagement with feared situations or visualizing safe and calming environments may reduce anxiety and reinforce coping capacity. Such mental rehearsal supports confidence and prepares the individual to respond more adaptively when fear arises. Physical activity contributes to fear management by reducing baseline stress and improving mood regulation. Exercise supports the release of endorphins and promotes emotional balance, while movement-based practices such as yoga integrate breath, body awareness, and relaxation. Regular physical activity strengthens overall stress resilience and reduces vulnerability to fear-based reactivity. Behavioral approaches such as systematic desensitization combine gradual exposure with relaxation techniques to reduce fear responses incrementally. More intensive approaches, such as direct exposure under professional guidance, may be effective for some individuals but require careful consideration and support. These strategies aim to retrain the nervous system's response to perceived threat. Self-compassion and social support are critical throughout the fear reduction process. Treating oneself with patience and kindness reduces self-criticism and supports persistence through discomfort. Sharing fears with trusted individuals or mental health professionals provides validation, perspective, and guidance. In some cases, structured therapeutic interventions or medication may be appropriate to manage severe or persistent fear. Lifestyle factors further influence fear regulation. Adequate sleep, balanced nutrition, and reduced intake of stimulants support nervous system stability and emotional resilience. Grounding techniques that anchor attention in the present moment can help interrupt escalating fear responses and restore a sense of safety. Fear management also benefits from broader meaning-making and creative engagement. Reflective, philosophical, or spiritual practices may provide perspective and reduce existential fear, while creative expression allows emotional processing through nonverbal channels. Humor, play, and enjoyable activities can further counteract fear by promoting positive emotional states. Overcoming fear is best understood as an adaptive learning process rather than the elimination of fear entirely. Through awareness, gradual exposure, cognitive restructuring, emotional regulation, and supportive relationships, individuals can reduce the intensity and impact of fear responses. With time, practice, and appropriate support, fear can become a manageable signal rather than a limiting force, supporting psychological resilience and long-term well-being.